me, Atem. My first recollection of engaging with a white person was when I was 5 years old. It was as religious to attend a parade during the summer holiday in downtown St. Louis as it was to attend Tuesday night Bible study or choir rehearsals on Saturday morning. St. Louis felt like the whole world to me, and downtown was an occasion. As we headed there, my mother reminded me that if I wanted candy from the parade marchers, I must have my arms out, bag in hand, and yell, "Candy!" I was ready. I knew with my little big voice that I could get the most candy possible, maybe the most out of all the kids that came to the parade. Candy! Out of the crowd came a pale figure with curly hair. After many years of sativa, her face is kind of faded and blurred in my peripheral memory. I do remember her words though. "Oh my gosh, is this your little boy? He's so adorable." My mother laughed and thanked her, and then something happened that I didn't expect. She handed me a $5 bill. I don't think I ever had that much money up until that point. She walked away, and that was it. You know, as the years rolled by, I wondered about that white woman. What she thought about that moment? What possessed her to do that? What did she see in a black child's face in the year 2000 that warranted a gift of $5? You know, even as I tell this, I think much of my relationship with whiteness is kind of defined by this moment. Also, by my relationship with Dr. Melanie Fields. In 2012, I was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was 16, and that may be the first moment the cracks began to happen. A crack that will grow into a full chasm that broke open my eyes to an underworld that I had no idea I belonged to. In just 2 days after my diagnosis, I racked up $30,000 in hospital bills. You know, my father's tears did not come when the word cancer freely left the lips of the aide in the ER, or when the first diagnosis came back wrong and we found out I wasn't in 2B, I was in fact in stage 4, or even when we realized that we were unhoused because the house we lived in was not conducive to having a child with cancer. The tears came when the billing department came to my room while I was foggy from being cut open the night before with the news that our entire stay had been forgiven by the hospital at the behest of my oncologist, Dr. Melanie Fields. In 16 long years, I knew my father. That was the first time I ever saw him cry. After, again, with minimal effort, a white woman put on her cape and came to the rescue. Cancer is how I learned how fragile poverty is. You know, how guilty it made people feel. But make no mistake, every act, every favor, every kind gesture to assist this family from North St. Louis, more specifically from Walnut Park, was done with the most genuine energy a white woman living in her nice home in Western Groves can give. Today, I stand before you, 13 years cancer-free, thanks to the efforts of Dr. Melanie Fields. That whole year was interesting. I realized I kind of edged my way into my identity. You know, can you imagine being 16, having your first erection, getting chemo on Jacked? What the fuck was that? Maybe it was the fact that I lacked facial hair, and due to the harsh medications, I began to pass for a cisgender girl, and boys started hitting on me. Was I sexy? Was this gay? Cancer will go from a test of my faith to the Lord on high to a punishment. The prednisone didn't help my acceleration of growth in the hip and chest area either. God forbid my my mother finds this is happening, my mother always found a polite relationship with white women. From the doctor to the lady at the parade 10 years prior, my mother approached her relationship with white people with the quintessential Midwestern gentility. The experience of her is too vast to name, for she's a black woman born during Jim Crow, so there's that. But her unpacking having a sick, queer, black kid coming of age while chemicals are pumping through their body with a tumor in their right lung is something she just really didn't have the range to deal with. Luckily for me, the context remains the same. This was a test of my faith. But what is faith in the face of the truth? From then on, my life was designed to remain humble and grateful, for God has blessed me with a second chance. But what do you do when who you are conflicts with your faith and the blessings you are indebted back to God? You know, after all, He created you. So I owe Him? Now, that's my relationship with the theater, but my mother was a self-taught black historian. God brought us through slavery and God brought us through segregation. The black church was the backbone of that movement. Again, I owned it, right? But I want to say there's being black sequestered in our neighborhoods and then in communities and faith groups. Then there's just plain old being black. For me, that changed drastically August the 9th, 2014. Here I am at the church helping with the back-to-school book bag giveaway, and the sound of laughter and small talk was overcome with sirens. Being from North St. Louis, seeing cops speeding down the street was pretty common. But, you know, this was different. What made this alarming was there was more than one municipal police department zooming to one of the most tragic scenes in St. Louis history. The news when I arrived home that night began to spin this narrative that shaped most of my 20s. Michael Brown was my contemporary, only being born about 5 months apart. The urban black youth took center stage on a national and international platform, and our stories were being told not only by white women, but white people of varying ages. It felt like the past 400 years really kind of came to this pivotal moment. My mother, you know, reading and telling me stories of our people quickly wrote me in that same story. I was not excluded or living outside of it. I was it. I was the moment in history. To put it plainly, what do you do with a black teen when they no longer learn history and become history? I would never forget the feeling of not feeling seen, and more importantly, my sense of safety in the world was undone. For a black kid at the age of 18, reality and safety don't always live cohesively together. And the kids are being aware of those varying circumstances they're constantly in. 4 weeks later, I kind of left my little ghetto tranquility of my neighborhood my whole life and moved to college. The shock of college was traditional. However, the shock of being black was a little foreign for me, and nobody in my life at the time had the language to fully prepare me. Before turning 20, I learned these truths. I was black, I was queer, and I was poor. My one safe world was shattered with the truth of reality. Honesty and heart no longer mattered in those moments when a white woman would give a black woman's child $5, because that same white woman can see reason to have that child shot in a single word. The constant intersecting of my identities and weaving became a daily task. From hearing facts from friends I somehow never heard it prior, to my professors saying nigger with the shield of literary superiority, to the Starbucks around the corner from campus treating me with fatigue. Mind you, I haven't even told you about being fat. I ask you, will I ever be able to pay the compounded interest of having intersecting systemic oppressions. It was ever going, unyielding, and it never ceased. You know, I was born to be my ancestors' wildest dreams. And in many ways I am. But in a single moment, 400 years of progress can be reduced in one violent act. And with the same minimal effort it took to have a white woman advocate for me and my family hospital bill. Is this really America? How am I that limitless and powerless simultaneously at the same time? Now, I'm an organizer, and people can't really put a finger on what I have inside that makes me really good at it. You know, I'm trusted to shift communities. Why? Maybe this is what pulling yourself up by the bootstraps look like to an individual only one generation removed from seeing white-only signs. There are some things that, these are the things that chronicle my awakening. I shudder now when I hear the term woke used. Who would want to wake up to this? There are parts of my story that I did skip over. Think of this as a thank you to all the white women who did something for me. No? Okay. At this point, I'm pretty sure you're waiting for some big conclusion to this piece. There isn't. And if you're confused about that, then you're getting a little glimpse of what it feels like to be black. There are questions boiling up inside you right now, isn't there? And to try to make sense of everything I just told you. To take this as a gift to you if you never see me again, there will never be a clear answer. At least not one that fully makes sense. Looking back, none of that made sense. And so much was avoidable. What answers are there in that situation? Nonetheless, these are the facts. And this is how I found out I was black.